I love to write, and I assure you I write regularly. But I write for myself, for my own pleasure, and I want to be left alone to do it. This is a quote by Mr. J.D. Salinger, writer of the famous and controversial book, The Catcher in the Rye. Good evening. I'm Sergeant Stuart McBride, and I'm here today to discuss the history behind book banning, as well as time leading up to some of our more modern cases, and then finally I will argue my opinion on this censorship. Are you a fan of literary works? And if so, how would you feel if all you were able to read were books that shared the exact same ideas? At this time, I would like to begin with when book banning first started. The origins of book banning date back to as early as 360 BC. The Greek philosopher Plato was an advocate for rejecting fables and legends that did not convey the appropriate morals. Plato described a society without these works as the ideal republic. Later, in 1450, the printing press was invented in Germany by a man named Johann Gutenberg. Due to this new invention and the mass publication of books, burning of these items was no longer an effective banning method. In the 15th century, King Henry VIII declared that all publications must first be screened and approved by his hierarchy. Following King Henry VIII, many other leaders, such as French King Francis I and the Roman Catholic Church, would follow suit with this persecution of literature that they deemed inappropriate. So now that I've talked a little about the early history behind book banning, let's fast forward a few centuries and then talk more about some of the more modern cases. U.S. Post Office agent Anthony Comstock is said to have been the pioneer of modern American censorship. Comstock was the founder of the Society for the Suppression of Vice, which was established in 1872. This group persuaded Congress to pass the Comstock Law, which prohibits mailing items that are offensive in nature. According to the First Amendment Center, Comstock was ultimately responsible for seizing over 120 tons of offensive materials, as well as prosecuting over 3,500 individuals. As for censorship and book banning in the 20th century, one main case comes to light. In 1975, a student named Stephen Pico fought the Board of Education for denying him his First Amendment rights due to restrictions that they placed on many of the books found in school libraries. Pico and the students that supported him won the Supreme Court decision and ultimately changed history. Unfortunately, between 1990 and the year 2000, over 600 books have been scrutinized. Many classics such as Of Mice and Men or The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, as well as the popular series from J.K. Rowling of Harry Potter. So now that I've talked about the history behind book banning, as well as some of the modern cases, you can see why I oppose this atrocity. At this time, I would like to talk about my opinion in regards to this subject. For one, I would say one of the biggest arguments pertaining to book censorship is that it is unconstitutional. According to the Cornell University Law School, the right to freedom of speech allows individuals to express themselves without interference or restraint from the government. In a 1787 convention, statesman Benjamin Franklin stated that the U.S. Constitution was designed for the purpose of ensuring that the government did not have too much power over the people. If you look at the long list of books that have been banned and scrutinized, you can see that many of these works have shaped history. One very good example of a book that was banned due to its opinions on government is George Orwell's 1984, which ironically is about a futuristic society which is starting to be void of free-thinking citizens. So now that I've talked to you about the history behind book banning, as well as some of the more modern cases, and I've given my opinion on this subject, I hope I was able to persuade you that we all must continue to fight for our constitutional rights. By doing this, we will ensure that the works aren't stifled by some of our next generation's beautiful minds. The information that I got from my speech here is from classiclit.about.com, firstamendmentcenter.org, law.cornell.edu, and usconstitution.net. Thank you very much, and good night.